Hey, good on you, mate. Through. So you can't get rid of me today. Look out. Bit like salt. Okay. Again. So, welcome again, everybody, and to our visitors this morning. Now's the part where you get to just relax and have a nap, and I'll wake you up. What? So, was I supposed to say that? All right, sorry. So, okay. So, what I want to share this morning is, do I have it up there? I will in a minute. Okay. Go. A new ethic for those who belong to a new kind of kingdom. So, our theme is for the year is loving kindness. And the scripture I've chosen to talk about today is from Matthew chapter 5, the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes are not the how to be blessed, but the who are blessed. You know? And so I'm going to read it. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, Jesus, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Well, some of them are excited. Go, James, go, mate. Hey, mate. I was around at James' place the other night and we were checking out all his Pokemon cards. He's got hundreds of them. Mate, and he's telling me all this stuff, and I'm sitting there looking like I know what he's talking about. This young person, like I'm there, and I got no idea, So, kids are just so smart today; they really are. So, blessed are. One of the things is that it's dangerous when religious people read the Bible. They're often tempted to make the particular, which is this, into the universal. So, for example, in the Gospels, Jesus called Peter to leave his fishing business to become his apostle and a fisher of men. So rather than seeing this as Peter's particular calling, some people insist this is a universal expectation for all Christians, that we're all to give up our job and to wander the countryside. So, and they pile on the guilt. They conveniently ignore other stories where Jesus, would-be disciples' callings were very different from Peter's. Jesus even tells some who want to follow him to go home. Mark chapter 5, the demoniac, when he was healed, he comes to Jesus and he wants to go with Jesus, but Jesus sends him back. He said, don't, go. So the gospel writers did not tell the story of Peter's calling to prescribe what all believers should do. The story was simply meant to describe what Peter did do. And the same temptation to confuse description from prescription can happen when we read the opening of the Sermon in the Mount. In the first 12 verses, known as the Beatitudes, Jesus identifies who is blessed by God. His list includes the poor in spirit, those who mourn, and the meek. Some see this section as prescriptive, so as what we should seek to be if we desire God's blessing. But that could lead us to believe that being joyful or courageous is ungodly. See, being joyful is a part of what we do. It's a bit like I've said many times before, we want to be joyful because being sad and walking around like you've been sucking lemons all day, that's what people think of Christians. We've got a sour look on our face. No, but we're joyful because of who we are, what we think about, what we believe, what brings us together. So, Jesus is not prescribing how to be blessed, but rather describing who is blessed. Hello, darling, you're back. Hey, you want to do this? All right, okay. Hey, okie doke. There. You're going to sing. I said we can do a duet when we finish. Hey, that's it. Hey, there we are, in the middle. Hey, want to sing? You're doing your barbells. Hey, oop. Okay. Hey, come on, sweetheart. Under mummy. Oop, can I exercise? Log out. Here we go. Yep. Sorry? Yeah, we'll be right. So, Jesus is not prescribing how to be blessed, but rather describing who is blessed. While the world says the strong, the powerful, and the happy are well off, Jesus turns our expectations upside down by saying it's the weak and the sad and often overlooked who are well off in God's kingdom. Stanley Horwitz, who's someone I didn't know much about, but I've done some reading, and he's a theologian. He's not with us anymore. Very clever man. Puts it this way: too often the characteristics of the Beatitudes are turned into ideals we must strive to attain. As ideals, they can become formulas for power rather than descriptions of the kind of people characteristic of the new age brought by Christ. So Jesus does not tell us what we should try to become, that we should try to become poor in spirit, meek or peacemakers. He simply says that many who are called into the kingdom will find themselves so constituted. The beginning of the Sermon on the Mount is not a to-do list, it's a good news list. Jesus is describing who has the most to gain by the arrival of his kingdom. He's not prescribing what you must do to enter it. And a lot of people say, well, we want to be happy, all these sorts of things, and that's what we're all searching for. I work in mental health, and I sit with people, and I'll say to them, what do you want when you come and see me? What do you want to have? And they say, I want to be happy. I say, oh, I don't know. Don't think I can do that. I know a bloke down behind a shed down the road. You can buy some happiness down there, but I don't say that. But the thing is that people are looking for happiness, but see, happiness is just a feeling that comes and goes. And the thing is that we search for something that we want to hold on to that's just going to go away. But see, being content, being okay, that's something that we really can look for, that we can be okay with. You see, if we want to be happy, we need to stay off social media today. That's one thing I say to a lot of my clients. I don't go on Facebook or Instagram, all the socials. I'm off them all, because I used to find that I'd be so caught up in it, and I've been on YouTube a bit now, and Lorraine doesn't want me on YouTube anymore. I come out and I want to talk to her. She said, Garry, just go away. Okay. So a study from the University of California found that the more you use Facebook over time, the more likely you are to experience negative physical health, negative mental health, and negative life satisfaction. Psychologist Jean Twenge, now there's a name you don't hear often. She came up in some research from the University of California, and she said it's especially harmful to young people who look at the so-called highlight reels people post on the socials and compare themselves so that they may feel depressed or negative emotions as a result. So what we're doing is we're comparing ourselves with other people at their best all the time. So of course, what gets posted on social media isn't reality. It's the highlight reel, it's inauthentic. And as a result, we end up comparing the unglamorous reality of our life with the fake glamour of everybody else's. So it's a recipe for despair. See, while social media is a relatively recent development, the underlying human instinct to project a positive but false self-image is nothing new. Ancient Jewish culture was plagued by this tendency. It was rooted in its understanding of who was blessed. At the time of Jesus, most people believed the healthy, the powerful, the rich, the respected, and the educated were clearly favoured by God. They were the ones, they were elite. So, the logic was simple. If your life looked good, it's because you must be good and God has blessed you for your religious devotion. And the opposite was also true. So if your life looked bad, it must be because you are bad and God has cursed you for your sinfulness. It's in the Old Testament quite a way through, if you look. Like modern social media, this desire is perceived as blessed by God, led people in Jesus' culture to project a positive but false public image. The truth about your life was less important than what people thought was the truth. And isn't that what it is today? You know, what we want people to think about us is more important than what we really are doing and who we really are. We want people to perceive who we really are. Yeah, and the thing is that we can't keep that up. Yeah, like I say, I was talking to Sammy out the back, and I work in suicide prevention, and the thing with suicide prevention is that 99% of the people I work with, I know I've probably said this before, they don't want to die. They want the situation, the circumstances that they live in, all the stuff that's going on, they want that to stop or change. You know? And there's always that 1% or so that, that they're determined. You know? And so again, when you're sitting with somebody whose life is affected by all these different circumstances, the thing is that, you know, it really wears people down. You know? And when we look at the Beatitudes, the thing is that, you know, Jesus is saying that, you know, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling low, or, you know, life's pretty hard, or all these things aren't going well for you, the thing is that that's okay. You are part of my kingdom. You fit into my kingdom. You know, Jesus didn't go out, you know, a lot searching for, the high-end people. The high-end people used to come to him all the time because they thought they were in. They would come and search him out and flex their muscles because they thought they were doing well. But, you know, Jesus looked for the down and out, the downtrodden, you know, the lepers, you know. And I've told this story before. I think it's in Luke 17. You know, Jesus sets his mind to go to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem's over there, and he starts going over that way. You think, this guy needs a GPS. He's got no idea what he's doing, this bloke. You know? And you can imagine the disciples walking behind him saying, what's he doing? I don't know. Does he know where he's going? I don't think he's got a clue. Do you think we should tell him? No, you go and tell him. Yeah? But see, Jesus is steadfast. He's heading towards a place. And he ends up near Samaria. And he ends up where there's a group of lepers. And he goes there and he heals them. And then he goes to Jerusalem. You know, the thing, see, what we learn from that is, see, Jerusalem was the height of power. Jerusalem was the place you wanted to be. It was like Silicon Valley. You know, you wanted to be there and have all the bits and pieces that go with it. But Jesus goes to Samaria, to a group of a group of lepers, and he heals them. And then he goes to do what he needs to do. Jesus sought them out. And see, the thing is, you know, the Beatitudes, you know, tell us that, you know, it doesn't matter where we think we are on the social ladder, we're all in. I was sitting here thinking before, I was listening to Wally, and, you know, we talk about faith, and we talk about coming to Jesus, and we talk about making a decision, and we talk about then that we've come into the kingdom of God. And, you know, when I'm talking to people outside of, you know, here, you know, people don't understand it. Well, you know, I don't get that, you know. I mean, how does that really happen? And the thing that struck me was that yesterday, the government actually changed the rules for New Zealanders to make it easier for them to become citizens of Australia. So when you come from New Zealand and you come here and you go and you get a piece of paper and you fill it all out, and then you go and you do a ceremony that, you know, say, oh, I'll follow the rules of Australia and all that, you become a citizen of Australia. You see, it's the same thing in a different way. You see, becoming a citizen of the kingdom or becoming a citizen of Australia is the same thing. You pledge your allegiance to who you're going to follow. You know, we live in Australia, so we follow the rules here, but we also belong to a kingdom that isn't here now. And see, we belong to that. We pledge to be a part of that. And so, yeah, when we say we are a part of the kingdom of God, people outside the church can look at you with this funny look on your face and say, oh, your clients are in the ward, you maybe should join them. And I try to, but they won't let me in. And Yeah. In the Beatitudes, Jesus refers to heaven a lot. And it's something he does in the Sermon on the Mount. And in the opening sentence, he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So what is the kingdom of heaven? If we misunderstand what Jesus meant by this phrase, then we're likely to misunderstand the whole sermon and probably Jesus himself. First, the kingdom of heaven is not the church. Some assume a local congregation that is the church, and by collecting all the churches together, that's what constitutes God's kingdom. No, sorry. And not a bad idea, but maybe, no. Second, the kingdom of heaven is not where God's people go after death. You know, we don't get on the shuttle and we go straight to, we're waiting for the comet to come. No, we're not. You know, Jesus was not speaking about the afterlife in the Sermon on the Mount. In English, the word heaven carries all kinds of supernatural and spiritual meanings. But the actual word used by Jesus was plural. Literally, heavens. Yeah, I only learnt that a while ago. See, you learn something every day if you look. And more like how we might use the word skies to describe the atmosphere. It's like we look up into the skies, you know. Well, there's only one. But we call it the skies, you know, and so we've got strange language, English. It really is. So the air isn't a distant realm, it's all around us. And likewise, Jesus used the word heavens to speak of the non-physical, invisible, but very present realm where God dwells. Dallas Willard defined the kingdom of heaven this way: where what God wants done is done. It. In other words, it is the realm where God rules and evil is powerless. Jesus announced that this kingdom was now at hand, meaning it is within our reach. The kingdom of the heavens has broken into our world and a new way of life is now possible. In the Sermon on the Mount, therefore, Jesus is unveiling a new ethic for those who belong to a new kingdom, a new kind of kingdom that is not of this world. You see, we're there, but we're not yet. You know, the thing is that, you know, we change in this life, and the thing is, it's not about, you know, we have to give up everything, but there are things that God would like us to do, and God calls us to do lots of different things. You know, I spend my time talking to people who, you know, like I say, want to die every day, and it weighs down on me, you know, and, you know, it's quite funny. Over the last probably 6 months, I've been spending a lot of time with 3 men, they're all elderly, who are terminal. So, you know, it just sort of happened. And I had 1, then I had 2, and then 3. And, you know, these guys aren't really old. And one of them was exactly the same age as me. And they're terminal. You know, when I'm sitting there and I'm talking to these guys about life, you know, and they're talking about that, you know, I'm going to die. And I said, no, you're not. You're not going to, you know, you're not dying now. You're not living now as well as you could, but you die when you die, you know. And so, you know, the 2 of the guys, they're in their 70s, and, you know, he's a really grumpy old man. He's a fantastic bloke, and he calls me out for all sorts of things. I love it, you know, and, you know, but every, you know, now and then he rings me up and, Gaz, where are you? I said, I'm at work. What do you think I'm doing? Well, you're doing nothing then, aren't you? Well, come out and have a coffee. What do you think I do? He said, nothing. So come and have a coffee. So I go and have a coffee with him. And I spend time with this bloke, you know, and I share with him, and he's fine. He's holding me at arm's length, you know, and that's okay. I just keep going back. Because the thing is, it's not about him having to agree with what I believe. That's not it at all. It's about how I relate to him. You know, I get emotional, I think about it. And the other guy is a father of a young friend of mine, and she asked me, could you spend time catching up with my dad? I said, yeah, fine, no worries. So I catch up with him, and he's had 4 or 5 years where he's been on this new treatment and things have been going well. And then a week ago, the doctor called him in and he said, sorry, mate, this is it. And so we're at that crossroad, and the rubber's hit the road. And so I go and I don't walk in the door and start preaching at him and telling him about Jesus or whatever. I sit down with him and I just cry, because he is. And I just share with him, and I just, I'd rather be down the coffee shop having a coffee and talking to somebody and having a laugh. But I'm sitting there with this guy, talking with him, and I know something's going on. And the other guy that I spent time with is who is the same age as me, is happened to be my cousin. And I've known my cousin since we were this big, and I used to spend holidays in Bannerton with my cousin down on the property down in Bannerton, and we used to clean the dip and all that. I used to think, I'm going away on holidays. Aren't I lucky? Then I figured out later on when I got older, no, Mum was having a holiday. I was going to Bannerton. Took me a little while to pick that up, and but I've known this man all my life. He knows me. He knows where I am. And he knows this guy had end-stage liver failure, and my brother was exactly the same. And so, we know the story. And I'd go and visit him, and he was a bit angry and cross. But I went and saw him, not Thursday just gone, the Thursday before. He'd been in hospital, and they told him that there's nothing you can do, that they can do, so you're going home. So I went and visited him, and he's sitting there, and he's just a shell. And I'm looking at him, and I'm trying not to cry. And he said, it's over, Gaz. I said, yeah, but not today. Try not just being hopeful for hopeful's sake, but not today. And we talked about stuff, and we talked about kids, and we talked about all the stuff we got away with when we were kids, and we got up to some mischief, fair dinkum, it was fantastic, and we just shared, and I had to leave, and I got up and I hugged him, and he hugged me back. He was in his wheelchair, and I said to him, I said, I love you, mate. And he said, I love you too. And I kissed him, and I left. Then the bugger went home and died 3 days later, on the Sunday. And see, I don't know what seed I planted. I wouldn't have a clue. But the last thing that he knows about me is that I care for him. I don't have any agenda. I don't want anything from him. I just wanted him to know that I loved him. In spite of all the things that have happened in his life and people have left him, that somebody loves him. And see, that's what I'm called to do. I'm called to love people. I don't have a choice. That can be hard. Ask Lorraine, my wife. And some people have a bigger cross to bear than me. But see, the wonderful thing about these three men is, I've reflected on it over this last week, knowing I'm going to speak this morning. And the thing is that, it's not a joyous thing, is it? You don't feel excited about it at all, do you? Either do I. But see, the reality is, how do we bring hope into a world where sometimes there isn't a lot of hope? There isn't a lot of life, maybe, these other two men, they're not being able to do the things that they wanted to do, or they were able to do 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Their life's changed. And so when I go and visit them, I just sit with them and I share, and we tell stories, and, and I just share hope with these people that, life is worth living every day. It may not be a great day, but today is today. Many times I worked at Headspace, and when I'd be working with young clients, I'd say to them, what would you do today if today was your last day? You ask a 14-year-old that and you get some really funny answers, I tell you. Some things I can't repeat here, but they do. They come up with some funny things, but some come up with some real stuff, and I'll say to them, well, why don't we go and do that? If that's what you want to do, why don't you go and do that? If that's what's important to you right now. We're sitting here talking about all this other mental health sort of stuff. Why don't you go and do that stuff that you love to do, that fills your spirit, that fills your bucket? Why don't you go and do that? Because that's something that you can do. And in the Beatitudes, just concluding on that, Israel back then, like the world today, was a very separated place. And, the Jewish people were called to be a light to the world, and they weren't doing a very good job. The thing is, today we are called to be a light to the world, to be out there to share, our love and kindness with people. Like I said, loving kindness is our theme. And so, how do you know someone is loving? How do you know? Because they love. It's not something you can do passively, I've been married 45 years. I haven't just sat there and, done nothing. Quite often I tell Lorraine how I feel. How do you know someone's kind? Because they show kindness, exactly. I can look out at all these people who are sitting here. I don't know who's kind and who's not kind because you're not doing it. But when you show kindness, we actually see it. You see, in the Gospel of Matthew, I'm just going to finish with this, guys. The Gospel of Matthew, it talks about when Jesus will judge the nations, and he talks about separating the sheep and the goats. If you want to see a really entertaining way of doing this, go onto YouTube, click on Keith Green, The Sheep and the Goats, and he sings a song. Brilliant, love it. And he sings the actual verse, and he goes through, and he talks about how those who are on his right hand side, come and saw him in prison and come and seen him when he was tired, when he had no clothes and all this sort of stuff. And those on the left didn't come and see him. They didn't feed him. They didn't clothe him. They didn't visit him in prison. They didn't do all these things. And then when he finishes at the end, he says, the thing about these people, the thing that is different is what one group did and what the other group didn't do. It wasn't about theology. It wasn't about what they believed. It wasn't about whether they've got a better church than us or whatever. It was about, did you do what I asked you to do? And they went and did it. So Jesus says, we all fit in. So let's do it.